You stand up to get a glass of water, and before your feet even hit the floor, you hear it. The thump of a tail, the click of nails, and there he is, already ahead of you in the hallway, looking back over his shoulder to check that, yes, this is definitely where we're going. You go to the kitchen, he comes to the kitchen. You go to the bathroom, and a golden nose appears under the door. You've laughed about it, you've probably tripped over him, and you've almost certainly called him your shadow. But underneath the joke, there's a real question, and it's usually asked at about 11 at night when the house is quiet. Why does he do this? Is it love? Is it habit? Or is it something I should actually be worried about? Because there's a version of this behavior that is one of the sweetest things a dog can do, and there's a version that means your dog isn't coping. And from the outside, on a Tuesday afternoon, the two can look almost exactly the same. So today we're going to separate them. I'll take you through the real reasons your golden follows you everywhere, including one that goes back to a Scottish estate in the 1800s, and a beautiful piece of research that shows what your presence actually does inside his head. Then we'll get to the sign that means something has changed. And at the end, if the shadowing has become too much, I'll show you how to build his confidence back up without ever making him feel shut out. Reason 6 is the one owners miss most often, so stay with me for that. But to understand any of it, we have to start with something most golden owners have never been told. Your dog was deliberately built to do this, because the golden retriever didn't happen by accident. In the Scottish Highlands, in 1868, on an estate called Guisachan, a man called Dudley Marjoribanks, Lord Tweedmouth, bred a yellow retriever named Noose to a Tweed water spaniel named Belle, and that litter is where your dog begins. And think about the job he was designing for. Not a guard dog, not a dog who works out ahead on his own. A dog who spends an entire long day out on the moor, within a few meters of one person, watching that person's hands, waiting for the next instruction, carrying something soft-mouthed all the way back and placing it into a human hand. For generation after generation, the dogs who stayed close and kept checking in were the dogs who got bred. Staying near you isn't a quirk your golden picked up. It's the single oldest line in his job description. And that instinct sits on top of something even older, something that separates dogs from every other animal. There's a famous experiment where scientists gave the same unsolvable puzzle to hand-raised wolves and to pet dogs. The wolves kept working at it themselves, stubbornly, alone. The dogs tried and then did something wolves almost never do. They turned around and looked back at the human. That look, that, "Help me, we're a team, what do you think?" is one of the deepest differences between a dog and a wolf. Your golden trailing you from room to room is that same instinct with the volume turned up. He isn't following you like prey, he's checking in with his partner. So let's go through what's actually happening, reason by reason. Reason 1, and the simplest. To your dog, being with you is not an activity, it's the default. Dogs are a deeply social species. For their entire history, being with the group meant safety, warmth, and food, and being alone meant something had gone wrong. So your golden isn't choosing, every time, to follow you. He isn't making a decision at all. Togetherness is his resting state. Every time you get up and walk out of the room, you're the one breaking it. He's just restoring it. Reason 2 is my favorite, because there's real science behind it, and it changes how you see him standing in the bathroom doorway. Researchers in Vienna gave dogs a puzzle, a device they had to manipulate to get food, and tested them in 3 conditions: with the owner out of the room, with the owner in the room but completely silent, and with the owner in the room encouraging them. The dogs worked at the puzzle far longer when their owner was present. And here's the part that gets me. It made no difference whether the owner cheered them on or sat there in silence. Presence alone was the ingredient. When they repeated it with a friendly stranger in the chair instead, it didn't work nearly as well. It had to be their person. Scientists call this the secure base effect, and it's the same phrase used for toddlers and their parents. A child will explore a strange room happily as long as they can glance back and see mom in the corner. Your golden is running the same software. Your presence isn't entertainment to him. It's the ground under his feet, the thing that makes the world feel workable enough to try. So when he hauls himself off a perfectly warm bed and resettles 2 meters from wherever you went, he isn't being needy. He's keeping his base in sight so he can relax. Reason 3 is the one none of us like to admit because it's our doing. Following you pays. He follows you to the kitchen. Sometimes a crumb falls or the treat cupboard opens. He follows you to the hallway. Sometimes shoes come out and it turns into a walk. He follows you to the sofa. You say his name and touch his ears. He has run this experiment a few thousand times and the results are excellent. Without meaning to, you paid the tale. That's not a criticism. It's just the mechanism. And it matters because anything that was learned can also be gently retaught. And if this is already making your dog make more sense, do me a favor and tap the like button. It genuinely helps these videos reach other golden owners. And stick around because reason 6 is the one that actually matters for his health. Reason 4. Your golden is a pattern machine, and he has memorized you better than you've memorized yourself. He knows the sound your laptop makes when it closes. He knows the difference between you standing up to stretch and standing up with intent. So some of that shadowing isn't affection at all. It's information gathering. He's tracking the sequence, because the sequence tells him what happens to his day, and specifically, whether it ends with him coming to or being left behind. If he shadows you hardest around your shoes, your keys, your bag, that's your clue that this is the reason, and we'll deal with exactly that later. Reason 5. It feels good, chemically, for both of you. When you and your dog look at each other, both of your brains release oxytocin, the same bonding hormone that runs between a parent and a baby. Proximity to you is quietly regulating for him. Closeness lowers his arousal, settles him, tells his body that everything is fine. And this is where being a golden specifically matters. Whatever else you can say about the breed, they were selected to be soft, biddable, and enormously people-focused. A husky can adore you and still take himself off to the coldest corner of the house. Your golden was built to want to be in the room. If you have a dog who follows you, is happy, eats, plays, and can also settle by himself when you're busy, that dog isn't anxious. He's a golden retriever doing exactly what he was made for, and there is nothing here that needs fixing. Which brings us to reason 6, the one to actually pay attention to. Because sometimes following isn't personality, it's a message, and the word that matters is change. If your dog has always been your shadow, that's who he is. But if a dog who was fine on his own has suddenly become glued to you in the last few weeks, that's different, and it deserves a proper look. Sudden clinginess can be pain. A dog who hurts often wants to be near his person. It can be illness or nausea. It can be fading eyesight or hearing, which makes a familiar house feel unreliable. So he anchors himself to the one thing he can still find: you. And in older dogs, it can be canine cognitive dysfunction, the dog version of dementia. That one is far more common than most owners realize. In studies, roughly a quarter to a third of dogs aged 11 to 12 show signs in at least one area, and by 15 or 16, it's around 2/3, while only a tiny fraction ever get formally diagnosed. New clinginess, new nighttime restlessness, or getting stuck in corners in a senior dog is not just old age. It's worth a conversation with your vet because there are things that genuinely help. And there's one more thing sudden clinginess can be: you. Dogs read our stress with uncomfortable accuracy, and a dog who has picked up that his person is not okay will often close the distance and stay closed. If your dog got Velcro during a hard month at work, a house move, a new baby, a loss in the family, that's not a behavior problem. That's a dog doing his best job. Now, the big one, and the reason most people came to this video: how do I know if this is love or if this is separation anxiety? Here is the cleanest line you'll ever get on it, and it has nothing to do with how much he follows you when you're home. A Velcro dog wants to be with you when you're there, and is basically fine when you're not. A dog with separation anxiety panics when you're not. That's the whole difference. The clinginess itself isn't the diagnosis. What happens behind the closed door is. So the answer is on your phone, not in your living room. Set a camera and watch the first 30 minutes after you leave. A dog who's fine will mooch about, maybe grumble, then find a spot and sleep. A dog who is struggling starts within minutes and doesn't stop, pacing, howling, or barking on, drooling, panting, scratching, or chewing at the door or the window frame. Always the exit points, that's the tell. And sometimes soiling in the house, even though he's perfectly clean otherwise. In big owner surveys, only around 5 in 100 report separation problems, and behaviorists will tell you that's badly underreported because the dog is quiet again by the time you're back and the damage just looks like naughtiness. If that's what your camera shows, don't tough it out with more alone time. That usually makes it worse. That one is a vet and a proper behaviorist, and it is very treatable. Okay, let's say your dog isn't panicking, he's just permanently attached to your ankles and you'd like a bit of your life back. Here's how to build independence without ever making it feel like a punishment. Step 1. Stop paying for arrival. Start paying for settling. Right now, being next to you is what gets the attention. So from today, when he arrives at your feet, do nothing. No eye contact, no fuss, and don't push him away either, because that's a reaction too. Then a few minutes later, when he's lying down a little way off and not even looking at you, get up, walk over, and quietly tell him he's wonderful. Or drop a treat between his paws. It feels backwards, and it works. You're changing which choice pays, and dogs are ruthless economists. Step 2. Give him a place. A mat or a bed in a corner of the room you're usually in. Not another room? That's a leap too far. Feed him there, give him his chew there, drop treats there when he chooses it himself. You're not building obedience. You're building a piece of furniture that means you are safe and off-duty here. A golden with a place can be near you without being on you, and for this breed, that's the sweet spot. Step 3. Break the departure sequence. Remember reason 4. He's read the pattern, so take the pattern apart. Pick up your keys, jingle them, sit back down, and look at your phone. Put your shoes on, then make a cup of tea. Open the front door, close it, and stay. Do it so often and so boringly that the cues stop predicting anything at all. It costs you nothing, and it diffuses the exact moment where most of the distress lives. Step 4. Absences in seconds, and a job of his own. Go into the bathroom and close the door for 10 seconds while he's chewing something good. Come out with no ceremony. No big goodbye, no huge hello, because that emotional gap is what teaches a dog that departures are a big deal. 10 seconds becomes a minute. Becomes 5, and underneath all of it, give him work that doesn't involve you. A stuffed frozen toy, a snuffle mat, 10 minutes of sniffing on a long lead. Very often, the dog who cannot leave you alone is a dog whose brain has nothing else to do, and sniffing is properly tiring in a way another lap of the block never is. A golden with a job is a golden who can lie down. And 2 things never to do. Never shut him out cold. Locking a Velcro dog in another room to teach him a lesson usually creates the exact panic you were trying to avoid. And never tell him off for following you. He isn't disobeying, he's doing the one thing his whole history built him to do. Calm, boring, consistent, that's what changes this, not conflict. So let's put it all back together. He follows you because he was bred to work beside one person and look to them for what comes next. Because togetherness is his default setting, not his special occasion. Because you are, in the most literal scientific sense, his secure base. The thing that makes a room safe enough to try something in. Because it is paid off 10,000 times, and because his body simply relaxes when you're in sight. And just occasionally, because something has changed. Pain, age, fear, or your own hard week. Which is why the one word to take from all of this is change. And the one action is, if it's new, ask your vet. The goal was never to make him need you less. It was to make being apart feel safe so that being together stays a joy rather than a requirement. And honestly, a lot of us wouldn't trade the shadow anyway. One day the hallway is going to be very quiet, and you'll miss the sound of nails on the floor behind you. So tell me in the comments, what's the most ridiculous place your golden has followed you to? I read every single one, and it shapes what I make next. Hit subscribe if you want to keep learning to read your dog, and go watch the video on how to leave him alone calmly, because it picks up exactly where this one finishes. I'll see you in the next one.